Policies that were born in the Beltway by people who've never worn a uniform, the people that were in the White House like Ben Rhodes, Colin Kahl, they helped create the firestorm that is the Middle East, that is ISIS today. So we are open to new ideas because the last 16 years have failed American national interests and the American taxpayer.
There were plenty of people who wore a uniform who advised President Obama and President Bush.
Not people as influential as Ben Rhodes, who had a master's degree in fictional writing. That is disastrous.
Well, I'm sure he would put his graduate degree against yours any day of the week. But Sebastian Gorka, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Anytime. I'd be glad to debate him on your show.
I'm sure he would put his graduate degree against yours any day of the week. I'm sure he would put his graduate degree against yours any day of the week. I'm sure he would put his graduate degree against yours any day of the week.
Your Carter page, J.D. Gordon, none of them adequately disclosed their meetings with Russians until the press found out about it. What's going on?
Nothing. You heard their statements. You heard Don Jr.'s statements that told you everything you need to know. He's not even a member of the administration. I mean, this is the shocking thing. Again, the amount of time you spend in desperation on a topic that has plummeted you to 13th place in viewership ranking across America. I mean, more people watch Nick at Night cartoons than CNN today.
Our ratings are doing just fine. I mean, if you want to go there,
13th,
our ratings are doing just
13th.
fine. But what ratings represent is that people
11.
are interested in this. And our ratings
Nick at Night is 11.
that
More
Americans
people are interested
in this. Look, I'm
more
sure
people are interested in cartoons than CNN, and that we've made the requisite statements. And in comparison to what other political candidates did, especially Hillary Clinton, it is very strange that CNN is obsessing on those who did nothing inappropriate and has nothing to say about people who are doing pay for play, who are involved in selling 20% of our uranium to Russia when their husband is getting a $500,000 speaking fee, who are in contravention of every classified information handling rule.
Is it possible, Mr. Gorka, that your team is obsessed with the Clintons?
No, we'd like you to actually do your job. And you know, you're not in the news business anymore. You used to be. You are in the attacking President Trump business. And it's sad. But we don't meet on the soil of foreign nations at their embassies to get opposition research. I mean, if you want to look at a real story, that's the story. Oh my gosh. If you want to look at a real story, the 126 leaks of national security importance in the first 125 days. I saw what you did yesterday with Kellyanne, 35 minutes on this one issue. Have you ever at CNN dedicated 35 minutes to the 126 leaks against this administration, 7 times the average of the leaks under the Obama administration, the Bush administration? Now that's a story worthy of CNN coverage.
We obviously cover lots of things along the spectrum, but I know that you do what Kellyanne Holman.
The president has had 4 days now without an event on his public schedule. You've heard the reporting that there's a bunker mode in parts of the White House since the news of Donald Trump Jr. broke. I want you to be able to comment on that.
Oh, absolutely. It's laughable. Your Chiron talked about a crisis. Your reporter talked about a bunker mentality. I actually work in the West Wing. I work in the White House. It is absolutely nothing of the kind. We are pushing the Make America Great Again agenda. The president is a steam locomotive that will not be stopped. It's just fake news. I'm sad to see CNN fall to this. I know you want salacious, sensational coverage for your ratings, so your corporate sponsors and owners will have, more money. But that's not media. That's not reportage. It's just fake news.
Okay. I'm just going to ignore the insults because I don't think it really gets us anywhere.
It's not about you. It's about actually having journalism back on TV.
Okay.
Where are the Walter Cronkites of yesteryear? This is just about ratings and money, and it's actually quite sad. And says that it ended up being about adoption, and then do you really want to talk? I thought we were going to talk about real issues, like what we're doing with our allies in France.
I am going to ask you, but you're not being honest. You're not being upfront.
Anderson, how many minutes are we in?
Are you a TV producer now? You're concerned about how minutes we're
talking?
No,
I'm just disappointed again that you're falling into the fake news trap.
Okay.
You're falling into the fake news trap again, and it's sad, Anderson.
Okay. I mean, you're like shining. You're like you're shaking shiny objects to try to divert people, but I don't think viewers are really that easily diverted.
You know why the president's description of a witch hunt is accurate? Because there never were witches, and there never was any collusion. It's bogus. The DNC.
Again, I'm just wondering, you're claiming that Donald Trump Jr. was transparent from the get-go.
Donald Trump Jr. is transparent.
He didn't just release his emails because the New York Times
you're like
had
a
them.
broken record.
No, because I'm not getting any answers from you.
I'm answering you. Every time.
No, you're responding. You're actually not answering because you're not actually being upfront.
Let's let the viewers judge, who decided that you are now at 13th place in national ratings, behind Nick at Night, which is at 11.
You used that line on Monday, and you know it was sort of mildly amusing on Monday.
Tucker Carlson gets 4 million viewers. You barely scratched 800,000.
But I think it's funny that you have enough time in the White House, which is apparently you're so busy, you're able to sit around and read Nielsen numbers. Which
no,
actually,
I get really good prep from my team because the White House press team is superb.
Okay.
I don't deal with this stuff because I do have a day job.
So last night, Donald Trump Jr. said two contradictory things.
Whether or not Don Jr. is part of the administration, Jared Kushner absolutely is, and Paul Manafort is well versed in this. Earlier this morning, exclusively, NBC spoke to that Russian lawyer who said Donald Trump Jr. wanted this information, damaging information on Hillary Clinton, very badly. Is she lying?
I have no idea. I've never met the woman, but I do know for a fact that Democratic Party operatives went to the Ukrainian embassy to coordinate oppositional research and attacks against our campaign. So that's a story. That's not somebody meeting under false pretenses to talk about another issue. That is Democratic operatives meeting with representatives of another government, not people who say they're from another country, people from another government.
Hillary Clinton didn't win the election. Many of her overseas ties are reasons why people
crimes aren't committed.
Okay, this is what I find
fascinating.
All right, so sir, if you want to make the argument that crimes were committed by Democrats, then if Donald Trump Jr. accepted a meeting like this and wanted this type of information with ties to a foreign government, would that also not be a crime?
I'm talking about the fact that you had a presidential candidate called Hillary Clinton running for the highest office in this country and the most powerful office in the world when her husband was getting $500,000 speaking fees from the Russian government. Not meetings with Russian nationals, $500,000 worth of payment from Russia.
Two wrongs don't make a right. So put Hillary Clinton.
No, that's illegal. That's pay for play. That's pay for play. When you are having meetings with individuals who are giving you money and your wife is in control of the sale of 20% of uranium. Can I finish? It's 20% of America's uranium to Russia. That's a story. Let's talk about that.
Sir, back here, the reason we know about this is because Jared didn't disclose the meeting. If it was such a nothing burger, put it on your forms.
So, number one, we have been in office for less than 6 months. In the first 125 days of this administration, there have been 126 leaks of national security information to the media. Now that's a story. That's illegal. That's felonious. But you want to talk about a 9-month campaign to talk about some... Can I finish?
Sir, do you think that people in the White House aren't leaking information?
May I finish?
Please.
Can I finish? Now that's a story. 126 leaks, 7 times more than the Obama administration and 7 times more than the Bush administration. But in the last 9 months, you and your colleagues in the fake news media, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish.
Excuse me. You're welcome
have not managed to find
me.
one felonious piece of evidence. Not one. In 9 months. Don't you think it's time the American people were served by the media justly and you get to national security issues like Mosul?
We're going to get to Mosul in 1 minute. Mr. Gorka, if we should go after everyone within the administration leaking information, are you not concerned that Jared Kushner himself, possibly even the president, leak information?
So you know who leaked the information? Do you have those identities?
I'm asking you. Do you believe that...
No, I'm asking you.
Well, I can't answer that, sir.
Do you know?
I know that there are people. I know that there are people within the White House who leak information on a regular basis.
Well, that's impressive. You know more than we do inside the White House as to who's doing the leaking. Maybe you should talk to the authorities if you're in possession of felonious activity information.
Leaking information isn't necessarily felonious.
If it's national security, it absolutely is. And that's congressional data. 126 leaks of national security import.
Or I didn't say that it was information regarding national security.
I have to just laugh when I read something in the newspaper about a decision where I was in the room the day before and it bears no relation to reality.
Okay, but members of Congress, Republican leaders, they say that they didn't know this was coming and they were surprised. Obviously, there was a lot of confusion at airports. People on the front lines, at least in that first couple days, didn't know exactly what was going on. No,
General Kelly would say no, and that's what he told me yesterday. There was no confusion. We actually implemented this order with 109 people who were slightly delayed for secondary screening. That's incredible efficiency out of 325,000 people in one 24-hour period. That's how smoothly it was executed.
Top Republicans, including Senators Graham and McCain, say that the ban is a propaganda tool for ISIS and similar groups and could put U.S. troops at risk who are fighting alongside Iraqi troops against ISIS right now. What do you say to that?
I would say that any document signed or executed in the United States makes no difference to ISIS. ISIS believes you are an infidel, Jake, and you should be beheaded or convert to Islam. Whether or not a president signs something or not is utterly irrelevant to that attitude. The idea that what we do here, that they're suddenly going to surrender or give up or recruit less, is absurd. They wish to have a global caliphate, Jake. That's all that they wish to do.
I take your point on the leadership of ISIS, but McCain and Graham are talking about it being a recruiting tool, that people who wouldn't necessarily join a group like ISIS or Al-Qaeda are, when they hear that the United States is banning people from 7 majority Muslim countries, at least temporarily, they think, Syria, who knows how long that's going to be, they think, well, this really is a showdown between the West and Islam. And I'm not talking about al-Baghdadi. Obviously, he has his opinions and his vile thoughts. I'm talking about the people that they might be able to recruit.
I think the people who propagate that version of events need to get out of what did Ben Rhodes call it, the echo chamber, this bubble that the media has created for itself on the left and on the right coast. It's not the reality. I spoke to an Iraqi today who told me his friends in Iraq, who are now delayed for a certain amount of time, said, this is excellent. This means the president understands how many bad guys want to come to America. We wish to be processed as former interpreters, as people who worked for the American forces in theater. We want to be recognized for what we did and to have the bad guys excluded. This is what Iraqis are saying right now who wish to come to America. Let's listen to them and not the chattering classes in LA, New York, or DC.
Well, we've heard from a lot of refugees and people who had visas and people who had green cards, and I'm sure you've seen the reports of people who were negatively affected by the executive order on Friday. I'm sure that there are some, we talked to one yesterday, an Iraqi who's now in this country who said exactly what you said, but there are also a lot of people who say, I've gone through 2 years of vetting and then all of a sudden I can't come, or I'm a refugee, what am I going to do? Some people who have sold all their belongings. Certainly there's another side to this.
Look, I am an immigrant, Jake. I chose this nation. I'm a proud American. My parents were refugees.
From Hungary?
Yeah, who escaped a dictatorship. What happened to them? My parents were vetted for weeks in a refugee camp. Not for 60 seconds by some INS agent or a member of the State Department online. For weeks to determine that they truly were persecuted and escaping that dictatorship and didn't pose a threat to the UK. But that's extreme vetting. That's taking national security seriously. This is simply about protecting Americans. Nothing to do with religion and nothing to do with xenophobia. It's about national security.
And you guys played games about it and said it's not a ban. I could play you Sean Spicer right now, but you know it's true. And then the president decides to be honest about it this morning. That is spin. You are the purveyor of spin because that was your message, that it wasn't a ban and it was untrue. That's why I'm asking you.
So I guess President Obama was also a purveyor of spin with that calculation, because the executive order is based upon the Obama White House analysis of the 7 nations of greatest concern for immigration into America. Well, is he a purveyor of spin, Chris?
Well, that's an interesting question. And while
isn't it?
I like that you must get away from President Trump and his policy as quickly as possible. possible and go
Not
to
at
the
all. I'll talk about
bromide
it
of
for the
blame
next
Obama
hour.
for everything. But if
I'll
you look
talk
at that
about it for the
executive
next
order,
hour.
I'm sure you would, and eloquently so. However, the facts are not your friend here, because that move with the executive order from the Obama administration was about travel to those countries. It was about who's coming in and out and why. Your order is about Muslims, about targeting
Chris,
Muslims
let's
and
stop
keeping
there.
them out and allowing those who are not Muslim a carve-out to come in. Very different.
Let's do a little bit of a 101. Let's do a little Trivial Pursuit. What is the most populous Muslim nation in the world, Chris?
You tell me. These are your answers.
No, you tell me. What is the biggest Muslim nation in the world?
No, you tell
Massive
me.
population.
I want to give you the opportunity to lay it out. Go ahead.
If you don't
Assume
know,
I know
it's
nothing.
Indonesia.
Go ahead.
It's Indonesia.
Right.
I will assume you know nothing. What's the largest Arab nation in the world?
You tell me.
Egypt. Okay? So if this had anything, and I mean anything, to do with race or religion, why would those two nations, the most populous Muslim nation and the most populous Arab nation, not be included on the executive order? Explain that logic to me, because this is where your spin fails. This is where the fake news propaganda collapses, because if we had some dark, dread, ulterior motive, then those are the two first nations you would put on the list, not the 7 nations that the Obama White House identified as greatest concern.
Well, first
so please
of all,
answer that
again,
question.
I will. President said
we're
this
here to
morning.
do one thing. We're not here to discuss your spin. We're here to protect Americans. So answer me this question. When the last administration forbade the State Department from looking at the public postings on the Facebook pages of foreigners applying for visas to America, do you think that was a good move?
I think that you have to judge the administrations
Yes or
by
no?
how safe. Oh, but
Yes
look,
or no?
it's not for me to opine on an administration's
Why you're
good
pining
or
the whole
bad
time about
nature.
the Trump administration.
If there are
Chris,
questions
be
about
honest.
the intentions,
You're opining the whole time.
It's
Your
not-
show
it's-
is opining. I think it's fascinating that you will go to any degree, not to criticize the last administration, but you will opine.
I don't think that's true or fair at all. We're up over 100% year over year. But don't let the facts get in your way. You're good at avoiding that.
Competitors, you know, unless you're being mandatory in every airport in America, you're in the tank, Chris.
We're up 100% year over year, Sebastian.
Compared
What
to
you
what?
just said is
Compared to
foolishly
what?
wrong.
Compared
It's not
to
just
who?
abusive of fact, but it's silly with its own logic.
Two
The
is the double of
CNN
one,
has
Chris.
benefited so
Doesn't mean-
greatly from the current dialogue and the demand for fact and testing power that it is demonstrable by any metric you want to use. But I don't care about that. Let's put that to the side.
It's comedy now, Chris.
Let's put that to the side.
It's just comedy.
Well, look, you may think it's comedy, but I want to address things that really matter
Getting
to
2
people.
views instead
And
of
the
1 is a
president
100% increase, Chris. You know
Excuse
that,
me?
right?
Excuse me?
Getting 2 views instead of 1 is a 100% increase as
I know,
well.
but that's not the numbers. Those aren't.
The refugee program, the vetting is 18 months to 2 years.
The length of it, maybe. That's paperwork. That's process. I am talking about
The interview
serious
program.
counterintelligence questioning, making sure somebody's story is accurate. The absurdity under the Obama administration that you're not allowed to check somebody's public Facebook postings because that's against their privacy. Hang on, American citizens don't have their Facebook posts protected from anybody else reading them. The system is broken, Jake. It's broken. It has to be fixed. We don't want to see a Berlin here. We don't want to see people mowed down as they were in Nice happening again in America.
We certainly don't, but there is not any example of a refugee successfully carrying out a terrorist attack in this country. And as you know, the individuals from foreign countries, from majority Muslim countries, who have carried out successful attacks in this country are largely from countries that are not on this ban.
I'm really glad you asked this question. This is incredibly important. Those 7 nations, which were identified by the last administration.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so it's Obama's. This is
Not for banning, but for thorough
concern,
vetting.
For
Yes,
concern.
absolutely.
Okay, those are the nations. Why are they? Why is it that list of 7 nations? Because that's where ISIS is, and that's where Al Qaeda is. Okay, Somalia, Yemen, and that's also Iran, a state sponsor. Okay, so these are the nations where we have to now engage with our allies, our partners. We have to take down ISIS. What do you think is going to happen when we squeeze that balloon, Jake? Where do you think they're going to go? I talk to our European counterparts. They are petrified that if we win in Mosul, what's going to happen? We're not going to kill or capture all the terrorists. What are they going to do? A phrase that was used with me today by one of our allies, there's going to be a starburst. They're going to go west, they're going to go north. We don't want the Berlins to happen here. We don't want the Paris attacks to happen here. That's why we're taking action now, and that's why the president's executive order is so very, very timely.
But of course, we do not want those attacks.
So we're being preventative.
But should there not be, I mean, it seems the criticism that you're getting is this is a blanket ban or temporary ban on tens, hundreds of thousands of people, most of them who wish no harm on the United States. Some of them, you've seen the stories in the newspaper, a little boy who needs cancer treatments, that sort of thing. That has the effect of, in the view of many national security experts, I'm not talking about the media now, talking about the national security experts, of this actually makes us less safe, even though the attempt is clearly to make us more safe.
Do you have a family?
I do. Okay. I have 2 beautiful children and a wonderful wife.
That's great. Would you be prepared to take the chance that out of these thousands of people, that we're just going to keep things as they are, and one bad guy gets in and attacks your family, God forbid? Are you prepared to take that chance? Because that's the calculation the president is making. And it's his prerogative. The law laid down in the 1950s states it is the commander-in-chief's prerogative to set the standards for immigration. He understands it is his burden to make sure your children are safe. I think you would take that decision if you were in his shoes.
We only have a few more minutes, and there are a couple other questions I want to ask. You've been a friend and acquaintance of President Trump for quite a long time. The decision to send troops into harm's way, previous presidents have said, is the most difficult part of being a president. As a man, as a person, what was the effect like on him ordering this mission in Yemen? We lost a Navy SEAL.
12, 13 tours.
Yeah, and I mean, just a wonderful guy by all accounts. Chief Special Warfare Operator William Ryan Owens. What was the effect of that on President Trump? Because it is, I'm sure, the heaviest thing he's probably ever done in his life.
I'll let you ask him the next time you see him, because that's an incredibly personal question to answer. But from watching him, I met him long before anybody took him seriously, briefed him on national security. This is a man that cares about this nation. He knows we are at war. And I'll just ask your viewers to do one thing. Look at how he treats, for example, the law enforcement officers that protect every event he went to during the campaign. He took time out specially to walk over there, to greet them, to thank them, whether it was a motorcycle outrider, whether it was a member of the personal protective detail. That tells you how seriously he takes the responsibility that is now on his shoulders.
I also want to ask you, there's a talk in the national security community that Steve Bannon is setting up a national security policy advisory board within the White House, and you're going to be in charge of it. Is that true? And if it is, what can you tell us about it?
No, I'd have to disabuse the media from
It's not
another.
true.
No, there's something called the Strategic Initiatives Group that was announced with regards to its director, Chris Liddell. And we are charged with doing long-range initiatives of real import to the president. And it's a number of task forces. I'm working on the Cyber Task Force with Mayor Giuliani. We have one on Veterans Affairs. We have one on U.S. manufacturing. So we have a Strategic Initiatives Group to do things with private industry, bring in outside experts on key issues such as the modernization of government IT, and that is very different from what the National Security Council is doing every day under the sterling leadership of General Flynn.
Sebastian Gorka, thank you so much for being here. We
Anytime.
appreciate it. Good to see you, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
I know it's a heavy job. I know it's a big job.
It's exciting.
It's exciting. Good luck to you. We really. Those aren't Obama holdovers. That's President Trump's intelligence officials. Yet President Trump a few days ago said, quote, "Nobody really knows for sure who interfered in the election." Why does President Trump continue to second-guess the assertions being made by his own intelligence chiefs?
Jake, I'd ask you the question, do you wish us to have bad or deteriorating relations with the nuclear power that is the Russian Federation? In whose interest is that?
Well, it's not really up to me, but I guess one of the points is, well, we don't dole out rewards to countries. The United States doesn't dole out rewards to countries just because they possess a nuclear weapon. We're not going to reward China. We're not going to reward Pakistan
for.
That's not
what I said.
Well,
look, let's go back to the president. So the president said, I don't know if you recall, the last press conference he gave in Trump Tower, as he was actually leaving the press conference, a reporter shouted out, "What about the Kremlin? What about relations with Russia?" And the president gave a very, very important answer that really has shaped the pragmatism of this administration. Because remember, we're not looking to create new enemies. That's a very dangerous way to look at the world. And the president said, in theory, I would like to have better relations with Russia because it's a geopolitical, geostrategic nation.